Well, this has never happened to me before. I had to follow the AA speaker. It's like big shoes to fill. It was a great story. Well, my name's Don M., and my home group is Courage to Change on Camino Island. We meet at 6 p.m. on Sunday evenings, and I'd like to welcome anybody who'd like to show up. My sponsor recommended a book to me. I think it's called The Spirituality of Imperfection. And one thing that it talked about was how important stories are in our lives and to mankind in general. And it made me think, about both Al-Anon and AA, that how important it is that we just are telling our stories. We're not telling you to do something or not do something. We're just telling our stories. And so this is my story. And I met my wife about 1979, I think, and she came out with one of her good friends, and because her friend's mother said that I had a band, and her friend's mother said if my wife liked the band, they could hire us. And the name of the band was Whiskey. And our logo was Boogie Till You Puke. And that's what we did, I had to roll a lot of my friends and band members onto their sides out in the yard so they didn't drown in their own vomit. But we partied pretty hard. We went out on the road, and I don't know, for the first 3 years or so, my wife drank. She could keep up with our sound man, he was sit out in the crowd and drink all night long, and then he'd be the bus driver after we packed up because everybody else was too tired. And we'd wake up about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd be pulling into a store, and they're out of beer. So that's where we started. And we're out in the middle of Montana, even Havre, and which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. But we thought we were going to make it big because somebody would discover us out there. But anyway, we've been married 43 years. My wife quit drinking when she got pregnant with our first son. And she actually went to an AA meeting. And she came back and home and said, I'm never going to another one. They told me I have to divorce my husband and, start going to church. And I'm not doing that. So for what I calculated is about 23 years, she didn't drink. We had a second son, and, during that 23 years, we raised our kids, basically, and that kept us really busy. And I can't say that life was bliss and everything, but, we worked through it. We were really busy with the kids, and we lived way down on the south end of the Camino Island, so it was easy to isolate, and it was a beautiful place to be. But anyway, once our second son went off to college, we went to a friend's wedding, and we were there, one of her friend's daughter's wedding, and she said, I think I'm going to have a glass of champagne. And I looked at her and said, okay. It's not like I can tell her what to do. She's a liberated woman. I grew up in the 70s and the 60s. And anyway, it didn't take very long, and she was kind of right back where she'd been when we first got married. And she was pushing it hard. And one thing that I would like to say about me is that I am a champion enabler. I am hands down. she always had work she had to do after she came home, and she decided since she was going to drink, she might as well smoke too, but she wouldn't do that in the house. So I set her up out in the garage with a table and a TV, a heater, and a refrigerator right next to her. And I made sure it was stocked. And I always looked for the best sales on beer. And I remember once I went to Costco and I had 2 carts full of beer, and they made me sign an affidavit that said it was not for resale because I had so much. But during that whole time, I drank beer too, and I smoked pot. And, Larry was talking earlier that the first time I spoke, I had a T-shirt made and said across the front, "Selfish bitch." And across the back it said, "It's all about me." And those 2 things are very true. They're still very true. And, when she was out there in the garage doing her work and drinking her beer, I was inside the house with the dog, watching what I wanted to do, playing my guitar or whatever, and she wasn't there going, "Are you ever going to talk to me? Are you ever going to say anything?" And I always put one earphone in, and then the other one I left out so I could hear if she said something. But anyway, so unlike most Al-Anons, I was fine with it. It was a lot of Al-Anons are desperate to have their spouse or loved one or child or whatever quit drinking. And with me, I was like, it gave me a license to do whatever I wanted, more or less, I could smoke pot, I could drink beer. And one of the things that we talk about in Al-Anon is detachment. And we talk about detachment with love. And during those years, that was not something I did. I detached with contempt and with selfishness, because I just wanted what I wanted. And, it was hard on both of us, of course. It was really hard on her, and it was hard on me. And I thought everything was fine. I was working, and I was a contractor up till last year. And anyway, about 2009 or somewhere in there, somewhere around 10 years ago, so that's 2012, what happened? Oh, I was out walking the dog, and I always walked this dog as fast as I could walk, and I got back home, and I felt funny. And it was really cold morning, and I thought, well, maybe I've got bronchitis. So I went to the doctor, and I said, I think I might have bronchitis. And he tests me, and he goes, no, you don't have that. And he goes, but let's just check you out. And he checked me out, and he said, well, let's just do an EKG. And did an EKG, and the EKG was fine. And he says, it's all fine, but I'm going to send you to a cardiologist anyway. And so in the next day or two, he had me down at the cardiologist, and she put me on a treadmill and inclined it and got me up to where my heartbeat was supposed to be, and she goes, stop! And another day or two later, I was in Providence, and they were putting a stent in my heart. And they asked me, do you have any stress in your life? And I said, I don't really think so. I mean, it's 2008. I survived that as a contractor, and other than that, no, not really. And my blood pressure's always been good, and my cholesterol has always been good. And anyway, about 3 years later, I had another stent. And that time I was out working, and I was digging really hard, and my heart started racing, and it just wouldn't stop. And I sat down in the truck, and it just kept racing. And so I called the cardiologist, and she said, I'm not even going to do the stress test. We're just going to go in and check you out, and if you need it, we're putting another stent in. And that's what they did. And I guess the point of that is that, a lot of people I think, are kind of lucky. They get mad, when somebody pisses them off. And me, I internalize things, and part of that's because I think my mom was Japanese, and you don't show your emotions, you just hold them in. And I know that a few times my wife would drive me to the point where I would finally really get pissed just to see me do it, because I wouldn't, I just let it all blow by me. But I always walked around with a big empty place in my stomach. I couldn't sleep. If I woke up in the middle of the night, I couldn't go back to sleep. And it was just, I didn't know how sick I was. But anyway, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago now, my wife decided to put herself in detox. And she told me she was going to do it, and she said, our lives are going to change, and you can either change with me or not. And she did, and I drove her down there, and then I also drove her to inpatient recovery. And where she was, and she was allowed to call me, every day, and she'd say she was going to call, but some days she didn't. And I found a notepad when we were unpacking and I was digging through crap, of notes that I'd written, and I was just pissed because, you could have called me, you didn't call me, why the hell didn't you, And I was so afraid because I didn't know what my life was going to be, because for so long, I'd just been an enabler. I'd been the person that didn't say anything, when she was drinking, got her all the beer she wanted, When she wasn't drinking, I spent, hours in my head trying to plan how to avoid any kind of conflict or something that could possibly happen, whether it happened or not. And I didn't start my timer, so I'm SOL there. But anyway, so you'll have to stop me. Anyway, it just wasn't healthy. It was killing me. And I'm in a big book study right now again, and and we read Two Wives, and that wasn't me in that chapter, because I was like, whatever. And but anyway, when she got out, I thought, oh, our lives are going to change, everything's going to be great, we're going to go for walks on the beach and holding hands and swinging our arms, and every day will be sunny. And she got home, and it wasn't like that. It was like I tried to do all the things that I'd always done. She goes, stop. I don't want you to do that for me. I can do that myself. And I was kind of freaked out. I did stuff like crying for no reason and just being wacko. And she was an outpatient by then, and she goes, there's an Al-Anon meeting right down the hall from where my AA meeting is, and maybe you ought to try that. And I go, oh, I think I'll do that. So maybe I can help her, And anyway, so I went, and I walked into my first Al-Anon meeting, and my grand sponsor, Larry, was there, and he goes, you are right where you need to be. And I was like, okay. And it was a pretty small meeting, but I would say by the time I was done with the first meeting, I knew it was where I was supposed to be. And I felt so safe there. And then he said, I think I have somebody that you need to meet. And next Sunday, I went to my first Courage to Change meeting, and actually, I don't think my sponsor was at my first meeting. I think he was back in Denver, but he was there at the second one, and I introduced myself, and I was really lucky. I got a great sponsor. And he worked. One thing about our meeting, Courage to Change, is we use the big book. We're one of the few Al-Anon meetings around that does. And we work the steps right out of the big book. And he took me through the steps, and there was a lot of, when you're writing things out, him going, and I'd just say, oh, it was just hurt my pride. And he'd go, oh, really? And then it didn't hurt your self-esteem or anything else? And the really good thing was he kept me moving through it. He kept my momentum up. He questioned me and made me question myself, And it changed my life, just the readings and going to meetings and having a good sponsor and working the steps. I started doing little things like picking up the trash off the ground, Like I shared an office building with some other people and a bathroom with some other people, and they were pigs. They left crap all over the floor, and I just go in and pick it up and put it in the garbage, and just that little thing helped me, And I had been so introverted that I hated returning calls on the phone at the business phone, which was business, because I'd have to call a possible customer back and go, this is Don from Cozy Homes, and returning your call. But all of a sudden I started doing that, and I made that the first thing I did when I got there, and our business improved, and I don't know, going to Al-Anon did other things. Like I could never look people in the eye and talk to them. I always looked down when I talked and mumbled a lot, as some people would say. I think I'm perfectly intelligible, but not all people believe that. But, it helped me open up that way so that, and I guess the other thing was that rigid honesty, doing a fearless moral inventory and being rigidly honest about it made me be honest with myself and be honest with others, and that's what allowed me to look people in the eye, because I was not hiding anything inside, And anyway, we're about 7 years in here. We both got our 7-year coins, I think, this last summer, and sometimes I still wake up with resentment, just automatic. Wake up in the morning, I'm resentful. I'm not getting what I want when I want it right now, and now I have the tools to ask for guidance, to ask my higher power for guidance. And also, I know that wherever I am and whatever I'm getting or not getting is exactly what I'm supposed to be getting or not getting. I don't know what I want, but my higher power knows what I need, And, even on the way up here, we leave the house late. I'm holding the door, and I'm on the way up here, I'm going, don't drive fast. That's something you used to do. You don't do that anymore. And, but I was thinking, I need to learn patience. I need to be, and one of the ladies in our group, she always picks a favorite word for the year. And last year, I think it was ask. And this year, I can't remember what she picked. What? Accept. Well, my word I picked for this year is kindness, because I'd like to try to be kinder. And one of my favorite readings out of the book is the resentment prayer on 554. And it talks about praying for what you want for the other person in your life, whether you want to or not. And said, and if you can't do that, at least pray for the power to do that. And it's something that I started doing a couple years ago, and it changed things a lot for me. It really helped with my resentments, and the things that I asked for were, let's see, love, kindness, patience, and respect. And I realized a while ago that I needed to be the person to give those things. And now when I pray, I ask my higher power, I say, please give those things to her. And if you want me to, help me be a vehicle to give those things to her. And if not, keep me the heck out of it, It's not my business, but my higher power, the other thing about my higher power is there was a point where I decided that I didn't have to drive the bus anymore and that I could turn things over, and it was such a relief to do that, to just say, ask my higher power for guidance. Tell me what to do, show me the way, or help me accept this. What a load off when you think, because when you spent your whole life manipulating everything to get everything that you want, and trying to figure out how to do this or not do that or whatever. All of a sudden, you're just along for the ride. And it's so much easier, I don't care what seat I sit in. Front seat's kind of nice, but I've also, one thing I wanted to say, I've had the opportunity to speak at Alpine a few times at family nights, and Larry's our institutions coordinator, and I go with him and often another person, and a lot of times there's no other family members there other than the people that are at Alpine and have to be there. And Al-Anon has helped me so much just as a person. And for every alcoholic, there's at least one other person that could really benefit from Al-Anon, and usually more than one. And, look at this meeting. It's a huge AA meeting. I haven't seen an Al-Anon meeting this big yet, but it's something I would like to see. So how far am I? Like done? Huh? 35 or 25? Oh, okay. Oh, hey, I'm doing good. I could talk for longer. Let's see. Anyway, the main things, I guess, are I'm really glad that I ended up in a group that uses a big book, that I got a good sponsor, that we worked the steps the way they're supposed to be, and they held me accountable, And I have a sponsee, which is kind of hard to get in sometimes in Al-Anon. There aren't that many men. And he's helped me more than I've ever helped him, because every time I talk to him, I have to ask myself, am I doing that? Am I, and then look in the mirror, And I'm really glad that I was lucky enough to get a sponsee. I guess there's one little thing that I wrote one day after a meeting, and it was just something I thought about, and it said, I am one of the lucky ones. If I had not been forced to face alcoholism in my life, work the steps with a sponsor, work the program, and found some peace and serenity, I would still be going through life selfish, resentful, and wallowing in self-pity. I have learned that I learned many of these behaviors from an early age. Even if there was a vaccine or an antidote to cure alcoholism, or even though my significant other is working the program and in recovery, I would still be the same miserable being that I was before. My character defects would continue to rule my life. Instead, I have the chance to ask my higher power to help me make my life and the world around me a better place to live in, and to not think only of myself. Existing in the miserable imaginary place I've created in my mind. And on 553 it says, Al-Anon, or AA, does not teach us how to handle our insanity or drinking. It teaches us how to handle life. And I'm really grateful that I'm in Al-Anon and for this opportunity to speak to all of you and for the life that I have now. Thank you.